Hi guys, welcome to another Chess Patzer UK video. This one I'm going to concentrate on a very recent Golders Green Open rapid play I just played in. A little bit different than normal. I haven't picked out one game. I'm going to show all 6 of my games and try to explain how I was feeling through the day. Just to show you that, you're not a machine when you're playing. There's plenty of mistakes, especially in rapid play. But I just want to show you, how the emotions are, how you feel, how to bounce back from a loss, etc., etc. So I'm going to talk you through it. This is Chess England's webpage. I know I've shown this before, and I'm going to keep showing it if I play one of Adam's tournaments, so you just have to bear with that. On here, which I've mentioned previously, you've got all the tournaments that Adam organises in London. There's a lot of them, as you can see. I highly recommend every single one of them. I played all of them. He's also started doing some training clubs. I haven't been to one of those yet. That's mainly because I teach him how to play chess, not the other way around. It's not true. He's 2100. He's pretty good. And until I get up to the 2000s, he is my master. He's not really my master. He's not going to get illusions of grandeur. Anyway, so this is his website, so please check it out. There's so much information on here. Not just his events, he does chess news as well, and photographs, etc., etc. So check it out, www.chessengland.com. Okay, so I'm not going to go on too much. I'm just going to make the board bigger so you guys can see it a lot more clearer. You definitely don't need to see the moves beforehand because that may give away some of the fun. Okay, and I've just deleted the wrong one, so let's just get my little Chess Patzer UK emblem back. It won't take long. See, as I said before, another smooth video. No errors. I don't know, one day I'm going to make a flawless video, but it's not going to be today. Anyway, so let's get rid of the right one this time. Remove, and then what I'm going to do is just add in a bigger board. So bear with me 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Here we go. See, there's the board. Let's make it bigger. Well, smallest board. There we go. Very satisfying big board. Right, so this was game 1. Now, because I'm in the Open and I'm only 18, I'm actually a little bit higher rated rapid play. I'm 1777 in slow play, but in rapid play I'm 1821. I was still the 3rd lowest seed in the tournament. The top seed being 2280 odd. Or was he 2260 odd? Actually, that 20 points makes a big difference. But you're not even a title player, just a very strong player. His name is John Merriman, and I actually play him, but I'll come to that later. Game 1, I was playing the 7th seed, a guy from Poland. He's 2172. I was white, and a little bit of myself when you're sitting down, you're thinking first game, obviously I'm going to get one of the top ends of the seeds, right? So you basically bounce up and down the pairing system. So game 1 for a lower rated player, you're always going to get a higher rated player, and you tend to lose. You just do, and in your head you're like, oh well, I'll take a loss, and then I'll obviously try and bounce back game 2/3, etc. So in your mind, you're like, we don't really want to waste a white against a higher rated player. But then after that fleeting thought, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to kick his butt. Which, whether I do or not, doesn't make any difference because you have to be in the attitude that you're going to win. Because if you sit down thinking you're going to lose, you've lost. I'm telling you now, you're not going to, unless your opponent horrendously blunders something. It's just not right. Your attitude should always be, no matter how high rated they are, I'm going to win this. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. So I had a positive mindset as the game started, and partially because of that, I think maybe the gods of chess decided to give me an opening that I know really well. And unfortunately for my opponent, he didn't know so well. So perhaps the rating disparity comes down a bit for that. Anyway, enough of my jabber. Let me get on with the game. So as I said before, I'm not going to go into too much detail into each individual game because I'm going to go through 6 games. This is more my feelings of the moment, and obviously I'm going to point out my massive blunders / genius moves. French advance. Those that watch me online know I like playing this tricky pawn sack line. It's very dangerous if they take the pawn. It's not a crushing win for white. It's not a crushing win for black. But what I do like about it is it will give you a lot of fun, which lots of people when they play against the French, they suffer. They They find it very hard to get your pieces into the right squares, etc. And the Tarash is 20 million lines of fury. The French exchange is pretty dry, so this will give you, if you're an attacking player, some fun. So he's taking a pawn. He's a pawn up, and the other move you can play here instead of knight bd2 is straight knight c3, and this is the Milner-Barry gambit, which is another story. And I do play it as well, so I will go into it at some point, but not in this game. So I'm partial to the knight bd2 line. My opponent, I think, played the best move, because this one is the hardest one to meet, I think. There's other choices. You can just take the knight. I think you can play, you might even be able to, maybe even bishop c5, something like that. But the point is, when he played knight back, I thought, oh no, he knew this line. Though it did take a little while to get to this position. So as it's rapid play, you get 25 minutes each plus 5 seconds. So he'd already used about 10 minutes, funny enough, and we're only on move 9. So I was already feeling pretty good. I mean, I was already pumped up anyway. I've got to say, I'd had a bit of caffeine before the game too, so my hands weren't exactly steady Eddie on the pieces when I was moving them. But at this point, because I've had this game probably 20-30 times, my confidence level's pretty good. You play your knight to b3 because basically you're after the c5 square, and if you can, you want to swap off this dark square bishop, because if you ever get your bishop, this is like dreamland, but if you ever get your bishop along this diagonal, the king's cut off and he's stuck in the center. Basically he's never going to castle queenside, because that's where your attack is anyway, because you just bring your rook to the c file and then you Müller him basically. So that's the idea of knight b3. I mean, maybe you're going to slot into here. There's another reason why that pawn's gone. You've got an extra square for your knight, and if you ever do get a knight, probably this one, you can then launch the pawn up the board, which is your basic attacking plan. So he played a fair move, developing move, nothing wrong with that. He's also targeting my e-pawn. His next move is obviously going to be knight here, and then I've just got to decide whether I'm going to take it or not. We'll come to that in a minute. Game of tempo on the queen. Obviously can't, nothing to interpose, so he has to move the queen, so my bishop's out for nothing. Another reason you give the pawn, you're giving it for activity. It's the best move to play queen c7, even though the follow-up's obvious for white. This is a pin, obviously, which means that this pawn isn't as weak as it previously was. And as I say, like, if he takes at any point, you want to be able to do something here or here, which is also part of the reason why this knight gets swapped off when it gets to the good square. Because the point is, after everything swaps off over here, if you then get knight takes d7, the king takes, and then the king again is in the middle of the board where you've got all your rooks and bishops looking. So okay, you lose 2 pawns, but I'd rather be white. So in goes the knight, as said. So this is just playing against knight takes, because there's also, after swapping, knight takes e6 because of the pin. If he doesn't take with the queen at the end, otherwise you just take the bishop, as I said. So it's all really straightforward. What I will say about this opening and this game in particular is I did keep setting him problems. And if you're going to win a game of chess, you have to make your opponent keep answering the problems. If you just let him play his game, then you're the one that has to answer all the problems, and it's you who will misstep and make a mistake. And also, don't get me wrong, I mean, I haven't played anything fantastic here. This has all been played before. It's just I understand what I'm trying to do in this position. Oh, coffee's good. Right. So here we go. So maybe the first slip, which sort of made me think, well, maybe he doesn't know the opening that well, because bishop on e7 isn't really doing that much. I understand it. He doesn't want to swap off for the knight, but he hasn't seen what's coming. Because the whole point of the knight being here and being a pain, as I say, about the d7 bishop and possibly the b7 pawn, is that you've now covering the b pawn, which I now launch down the board. And if I ever get this, I'm just Bella. I'll just be winning. So he stops that, and I say, well, let's renew that threat. You know, come on, I'm coming for you, boy. Takes my pawn action. Now here, this is where, you know, and he's a good player. He's admitted his mistake. He should have probably taken the knight first off anyway. So he's just taking it now. But I feel like I've gained a tempi. And taking back with the bishop or the rook was something that took me a couple of minutes. There's not really anything massive after rook takes. I'll just put it on the board briefly. Um, because there's no real threat. I'm not really going to be playing b5 at any point, because now I think he can just take, and then after I take, I'll just show you. He takes, I take, queen takes. There's no pin, so b5 is no longer a really big threat, and he's now 2 pawns up. So even if I get one back, it's not a nice position for white. He's going to be able to castle, no problems whatsoever. So taking with the bishop, as I mentioned earlier, means that I'm now covering all these squares, so the king can't castle. I have to block with a knight at some point and then castle, and it's all a little bit awkward for him. So taking with the bishop was pretty smart. And here he could still take this pawn, which the computer gives basically the same score for what the move he does play. But I was much happier to see the move he played, which is queen d8, because now I don't have to worry about this pawn. As white, if I do drop that pawn, then I'm definitely in a bad way. I mean, he's playing queen d8, so he can basically block with a knight and then castle, just like I said. But the plus side is I finally get to defend this pawn properly. So the pawn's going nowhere. It's a nice pawn on his side, and he can't castle. So it doesn't matter that he's rated 2172, because even if you're 2172, you can't mentally move your pieces any harder than a little 1800 like me. It doesn't give you like an extra bonus move. It just gives you extra vision into the future, and maybe a few extra more patterns, which obviously pattern recognition is massive in chess. My opponent lashes out. I'm happy to see that as well. I mean, obviously if I leave the pawn there, he'll just move his king to f7 and rook somewhere later on. Maybe even just push Harry. Who knows? But his king would be a lot safer on f7. So I've got to take that pawn. No brainer. Took no time for taking that one. He takes back with a pawn, and he's missed a tactic here. This is the problem with your king stuck in the middle. Bang, bang. Now, I got my pawn back. His king is stuck. He's got a bad bishop. The rook's not great. I'm fully defended. I mean, I have opened up the file for his for a H file attack with his rook. So I've got to be a little bit careful of that. That'd be nice if he played that. But in general, my position is just better than his. So I'm feeling pretty confident here, and I must say I'm shaking quite a lot from the caffeine. So already in my head, and you've seen it before on previous videos, I'm already congratulating myself. Oh, I'm going to win this, but I've got to put it in the bag. So he moves his king, so it's breaking the pin. So now my queen's attacked. You just take it. So I've got to move my queen, so I keep it centralized. I've got a target. I want to eventually get my knight in here, so I want to play something like this. This is what I'm thinking at the time. If I ever pull his rook over, oops, not that far. But if the rook ever comes over, perhaps I'll need to be trying to get down the back door. Come round, perhaps knight in, attack this pawn, get him to move any of these pawns, and his king becomes really exposed. He's not safe there. He's safe at the moment if the pawns don't move. So I'm going to try and entice those pawns forward. Attacks the bishop, fine. Just move it. No big deal there. Has to bring the rook over because I'm actually threatening just to take the rook. I'm quite happy to take 2 pieces for the rook. Queen takes, and again I'll have a really good position because I'll be attacking sideways on this pawn, and I'll be like basically a piece up. So he defends the knight. b5. Let's get rid of that knight. Obviously, the best square for it would be here, but I'll just take it. So he swaps, brings his knight back. I'll take his rook because I want him to take with a queen, because I think his queen will be misplaced then. Perhaps I'll add options then to take that. Bring the king over and then knight here again, and this time the pawn's pinned. But he takes with the knight, which is the best move because now I have to move the bishop. Had a lot of squares to put that bishop, but I chose this one because I thought the queen might leave at some point, and I thought it was always nice to just have an extra defender on the rook, especially if I want to move my knight around somewhere at some point. It's the kind of paranoia where I've dropped pieces before, so this time I just left it defended. He can never take this pawn, just so you know, just because of course I'm always just going to take on e6. So I'm still feeling pretty good here. So he's get his queen active. He's getting his queen active, and he is always looking at this as well. And seeing as I do want to move my knight at some point, my next move was pretty obvious for me. Just stop that. Where's the queen going afterwards? I don't see anything too scary. Now I can get on with attacking him, hopefully. Rook is aiming here because he knows that I want to play knight d4. Because if I get knight d4, I'm just in a really nice place. I've got two really nice squares to get to. Perhaps if I get him to push some pawns, maybe one day it's going to get into here. So if I played very casual and played knight there, I think rook here just, well, it's not great for me, is it? If pieces come off, he's probably okay. Remember, we're level material, and I might even drop this pawn. So hope's internal. And he's also, obviously, also attacking this pawn. So he could take that as well. So it's a multi-purpose move. It's a good move by my opponent. But I have spotted that this pawn is pretty damn weak. And if I can get, as I said previously, if I can get his pawns to move, especially this one, he'll have big problems on the dark squares. Because I have a dark square bishop, and his light square bishop can't challenge it. So, pawn push. I take the dark squares, simple threat, bishop here, and then my queen's just a beast. Check, 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 knight in, you know, it's game over. So he lashes out again, and the good news of him lashing out this way is that I get to go back to my original attack. So trying to stay calm. Obviously my blood is pumping really hard here. I've never beaten a 2100, let alone a 2172, which is nearly 2200 in my book. So I must say my nerves are shredded at this point, but I'm trying to stay calm. I'm breathing. He defends the pawn. I pin the pawn so I can take it next move, and with check, and it will win the rook. And my opponent just blunders here. I mean, he's had too many problems, bless him. And I think he even said, "Oh, he was panicked and he just saw bishop takes." But after my next move, he just resigns because obviously here I'm just winning the rook because it's check. So game one done, and I've got to say I went down to see Adam, who was doing the arbitering on his own today. Sorry, on Saturday. It's Sunday today. And I was shaking, and I was like, "Oh my god, I just won! I can't believe it! I just beat a 2172, and I didn't calm down. I've got to say, even when the next game came along, which I'll show you now, I'm still shaking and buzzing. Oh my god, I can't believe what I just did. Very hard for me to pull myself back into normal mode. So let me load up the game 2. New analysis, load PGN. Oh, look, the arrows are still on the board. That's helpful. It's not helpful at all. I'll sort them out in a second. Bear with. Copy. Back, not close. I usually close there and have to reopen all the browsers because I'm a patzer. There we go, game on. So in this game I was black, and it doesn't always happen, but I was black, white, white, black, white, black, white, black in this tournament. Sometimes you get double black, sometimes you get double whites. It was pretty straightforward for me color-wise this time for a change. So actually winning that game as well, I actually thought I may be up on the top board. So I was a little bit disappointed when I was on board 5 instead of board 1, which is quite a long way away from the top. My opponent was an American chap, 1824, so pretty much the same rating as me. But he drew with an IM in the first round. So I've got to say, caffeine's still pumping away, and now a bit nervous, black against someone who just drew with an IM. I'm like, oof. Okay, well, we'll just play my game and we'll hope for the best. He plays E4, and recently I've been playing a lot of E5 and a little bit of C6. So I thought for this particular game, I'll just, while I'm still awake, I'll go for the most complicated lines, which is, for me, in the Sicilian. If you want to win a game of chess, then you need to make the game unbalanced, and generally in the Sicilian, that's what you're going to get. So I just whiz through some moves. Again, I'm not going to go too much into theory because I just want to get through the games. He's a Nadorf, and he plays G3, which is a more quiet line, but as you'll see, the game develops. It's not as quiet as people may imagine. So I kick the knight around, just develop. That's space restraining. He's trying to stop me playing B5, which is fair enough. So he's basically trying to stop B5 and D5. Because if black can't play either of those two moves, generally your game's busted. So he's just trying to stop me playing. But what I've learned from that is just don't panic. Just keep playing normal moves and just see what happens. So develop, knight in. Okay, maybe the first mistake. He didn't need to play his knight in straight away. Perhaps he could have prepared it a bit better. Maybe f4 was better as well. F4 is pretty aggressive. I mean, my bishop probably end up sitting here, but you know, you're getting your pawn storm going. I'm not saying he hasn't got attacking ideas, because you'll see he does. So I just take it, keep my knights. They're very useful. They can bounce out the way. Perhaps I'm going to play f5. You know, then I'll finally get my counterattack, because obviously I'm never going to get d5 now. There's a pawn in the way, and b5's. I can play b5 now, actually, funny enough. But then I didn't want to open up his rook, because it gives him a lot of play with the bishop defending. So I didn't play b5. I played knight here because c4 is always a nice square in Sicilian, because you're after the b pawn, potentially hassle the light square bishop. You can build up behind the knight and maybe attack the c pawn. So it's a multi-purpose move. Okay, and in some dreamland you can actually take that pawn, but not usually when there's a bishop on g2. So just whizzing through. Obviously he's defending the pawn. Funny enough, you think, oh well, what's he doing? The rook's trapped, but the computer gives him plus 0.4 here, so it just shows you that even though white looks a little bit awkward, black's position hasn't got a lot. I'm basically x-raying the c2 pawn, a bit like what I was just explaining. g4. Wasn't expecting this move. It's not usual to see a g pawn suddenly attacking you, defended by the queen, obviously. And I gotta say, I underestimated this idea, because it becomes quite hairy. I move away because I just want to play f5, like I mentioned earlier, and I hope that his king is more exposed because there's no pawn in front of him for the g pawn. Okay, yeah, if he gets a rook over, then perhaps, you know, this is times not to panic. If you played a Nadorf, you're going to get attacked, so you just have to accept that's going to happen. And I think a lot of this, how I did in this particular tournament, is I managed to control my nerves quite well, which you'll see to more or less extent as the tournament goes on. So he kicks the knight. It's a good knight. Now he can move his bishop. Move my knight away. I'm attacking his knight, so he has to do something about that. Brings his knight to a very good square. He's looking at this square. He's potentially looking here. That's what basically my plan of playing f4 is a little bit risky if I say just have a knight here blocking the bishop defending this square, because I've always got to be fearful of a knight ending up in e6, and that'd just be really, really bad. And it's part of the reason why I haven't moved the b pawn, because a lot of times in these sort of openings you end up with a knight on c6, and that's really nasty too. So I tend to do piece play first against these sort of lines before I start checking Barry up the board as the counter attack. But anyway, so on with f4, f5, sorry, because that's it's my only real break, and I've got to go for his king as far as I'm concerned. He's still better here because the bishops have got a lot of room, and my knights are kind of stuck. And though, yes, his king does look a little bit funny with two pawns here and here, this is actually a big pawn that could be used as an attacking tool as well. So he's still better. It's a good move, drives the rook back. I've got a pin on this. I've got to be a little bit careful. I do want to move this knight at some point. It's probably to here, you know. One of the fears you have in this sort of position is that the queen's going to drop into h5, but that would be negated straight away if I could play knight here, because then the knight will come off, and then the less pieces he's got, the less scared you have to be. So he defends the pawn first, which he does have time for. Again, I'll let you know that the computer's got him at +1 here, so considering the material's equal, it means he's got a lot of initiative. I break the pin. He attacks the knight because the knight's only got one square, so it puts the knight in a really bad place. But again, I'm still not panicking. I mean, I don't feel good after my smashing win in the first round, but I'm not lost. So until checkmate comes on the board, I'm trying to stay positive. I'm like, okay, my knight's bad, but if I can move my bishop, then my knight doesn't look so sad on e7. You know, trying to stay positive. Maybe it can sit here. Maybe dream to get here. Just keep dreaming, because you know, if you have these ideas, perhaps you'll get them. But if you just sit there and think I'm lost, you will have no chance of winning a game. Quite imaginative by my opponent. He's attacking sideways. Whoops. Sorry, I jumped ahead of move there. Oh no, you know what's coming. But this rook move is actually a little bit scary because it could just swing over. It's, you know, it's very imaginative. He's got to get a lot of pieces out of the way otherwise. So I was impressed by my opponent. I said to him after the game, I really liked rook a4. But here he gets a little bit confused with his move order. It's starting to get a little bit more tricky. So he's in his head. Unfortunately, I've seen one move further than him here. Is rook here. I get to take this pawn because he thought, I've got pawn down, fork in 2 pieces, but the rook's not defended. So he missed that. So now suddenly from -1, I move to -0.7. Sorry, I had to ping the computer there. So that's a good change for me. And okay, he's still got a really dangerous attack, etc. And a very good rule here is, if you can take material when you're losing, then if your opponent messes up, which is chess, and we know there's lots of mistakes to be made, you will be material up. So if he messes up, you may as well take the material, because then you're basically going to win. So I took the pawn. I'm like, there's no reason why I shouldn't. The other reason to take that pawn is because, okay, the knight can now come out, right? And there's a rook there. So a couple of good reasons to take it, but here he loses a little bit of energy. Knight g3 is not a scary move. I don't care about his knight coming here because the rook defends it. Knight here looks very superficially attacking this pawn. So I think this is his first big mistake. I'm right back in the game now because I can bring my knight in with tempi. Okay, yes, he brings his rook into the attack, but now I'm winning some really vital pawns because the queen can defend from here. Not only is it a good defender through this pawn, if I ever move the pawn, I'm also threatening to swap queens because there's only one square, and I'm very happy if his queen goes there. And thirdly, I've actually pinned his knight. This knight can no longer come into an attack. He'd love to do that because then he's attacking. But I'll just take the bishop and laugh. So he's let me right back in. Bishop g2 just does double move again. He's breaking the pin on the knight, and he's also hoping at some point to get his bishop here. So I try to swap queens. He knows he's got no chance if he swaps queens, because if the queens come off, I'm just material up. So I keep taking material, and in this case, okay, it's a little bit worrying opening up lines, and my queen does now get chased around a lot. And I remember thinking in the game, maybe I'm being a little bit too greedy here, and I could get spanked, by a quick tempi move. So I wasn't feeling massively confident here. All I thought was just keep breathing, stay calm, and try to not walk into anything obvious. So a nice little in-between move from my opponent. Had to move the knight, but then I bring my knight back. The knight back defends the pawn. Also, potentially, we've got a jumper into f4, which is definitely something you want. So I must admit, I'm breathing a little bit easier. But in comes the bishop. As I say, this is a part where I've got to be careful. The knight's loose. The queen has to keep defending the knight. You got to pick a square. And the computer says best move is to come back to b5, but I felt like it was away from the action. I wanted to stay on this diagonal just in case I ever needed to get my queen to f7. So that's why I played queen b3. I may even be attacking his pawn at some point. Not straight away, because obviously there's always this check. And then you lose your queen. So he brings his knight in. Fair enough. He's attacking. That's the other reason about the bishop. He now defends this square, so the rook can't just take the knight. The knight's useful. It's attacking the dark square bishop. It's attacking d6. It's plenty for me to panic. So fair play to my opponent. Kept me under pressure. And that defends the bishop and defends the g-pawn. He's moving his king out of the way. Obviously, he wants to double up rooks. I bring in the knight, of course. The bishop's now... I don't have to keep defending g7. I've got to have some sort of activity. And at some point, maybe he's got bishop h6, so it's definitely time to block and, cover some squares around his king. Who knows, might be able to get a knight jump in at some point. Doubles up rooks. I defend again. Takes one of my knights. Attacks the queen. Queen's eyeing up this bishop, which you hope your opponent will miss. And he does. And that's it, he's cracked. He loses 2 pieces very quickly here. Whatever he blocks with, I just take his knight, and it's game over. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm on 2 out of 2. How did this happen? And then I'm dreaming of, oh yeah, please board one, please board one. I want to be on board one, even if it's just for 5 minutes of fame. So I rush off, tell Adam, yep, managed to win that one. Crazy game, but managed to win. And the moral of that game was literally, I held on until I got a chance and I took it. So just keep holding on. So, yes, round 3. Now this is, I finally, yep, I got up to board 1. I took a photograph, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter. I had to. I mean, like, that kind of thing just doesn't happen. I was playing I am John Piggott, who's 2200 and something. Not sure 100%, but he's an IM and he's good, obviously. And he's doing well. He's also on 2 out of 2. Let me load the game up. Now, I've got to say, I did something that I think a lot of you probably do. I mean, this won't be a new thing to any of you, but I changed my game because I was playing someone really, really good, and I was on the top board and people were watching. So I went cagey. My friend Vincent had played him in previous rounds, and he's been playing the perk against E4, which, funny enough, is only his 3rd perk he's ever played in his life. So I'm not gonna do too much about it. I'll show you the opening moves. Oh, there's the key move there. Now here, if I was playing anybody else, and it shouldn't make any difference that he's an IM, I should have played either F4 or F3, Bishop E3, Queen D2, H pawn attack, and then checkmate him. That's what I should have done. Okay, I appreciate he's an IM and you probably defend it, but it's the way I play chess. You've seen all my games are pretty much, I will go for you if you give me a chance. I'm a tiger. But I wasn't in this one. I was a pussycat. And I've got to say, I just wanted to not be lost out the opening. And H3 is okay. Don't get me wrong. It's still an edge for white because you've still got a lot of space, etc., etc. But it's not the way I play chess. I'm not a positional player at all. It's not like I don't know how to play positionally. It's just I get lost, and as you'll see, very quickly in this game, in fact. And a little bit embarrassing. A lot of things happen in round 3. I've just had lunch. So I've just had a big sandwich. Big mistake. Should have had a salad or a soup. Carbs make you tired. 2, I was really nervous. Never been on board 1 in an open before. And, you know, I've had quite a lot of caffeine by now, so my nerves are a little bit shredded. And 3, I took myself out of playing my own game. So these are 3 things working against me, which I'm going to work on if I get this opportunity again. And I hope I do. So H3 is a bit negative. What it does do is it lets you get all your pieces out without ever having to worry about knight coming in and upsetting things, which is the same as F3, but if you play F3 it's harder to possibly castle kingside, and I was always going to castle kingside. So just develop, he develops, he's going for E5, I just castle, he plays E5, I swap. This is all very, very straightforward. A4, I want to play A5, play a knight into A4 and try and get an anchor into C5. That was the idea. But as I say, my positional ideas aren't amazing. He's against that plan straight away. And I'm like, well, he hasn't stopped me doing it, so I'm going to keep going. Drops his knight in. Here, to be quite honest, doesn't make any difference if he takes his bishop. The position's still pretty level. He may outplay me later on, but it'll be later on. And I have no idea why I played this move, but I'm not calling myself a chess patzer just because, you know, irony, like I'm actually a really good player. I play bad moves too, and that is a terrible move. Knight A4, it's just really bad. There's so many normal moves I can play. Just B4 with the idea of what I ended up playing anyway, but just in the right move order. Queen C1, yep, maybe try and get... I don't know about swapping off this dark square bishop, because this one will stay bad for a while until he gets to play F5. So, but it's better than just dropping a pawn for nothing. This is just crazy. As soon as I pick the piece up, you can't pull it. It's not like I can... And I realised it was a mistake as I picked the piece up. It's not like I can drop it back here or anything, because it still loses the pawn. So I thought, well, I've messed that up on move 12 against an IM. How many chances I'm going to get against these guys on ball 1? Well, future will tell, I guess. But so I just drop a pawn. I follow through with my plan, which is what I originally thought. I obviously noted that his queen and rook have been lined up. So b4 now is nowhere near as good. And he punished me very nicely. There's a fork, but I just defend the rook. I fought, and then there's another fork. And now the bishop here doesn't really matter. I mean, here I took the rook because I'm like, well, if he makes a silly mistake, I can just take his bishop, and then I can take his knight. He plays the right move, but he can win also with just playing knight. I think he can just go knight check. I think this just wins as well. I think he just picks the queen up here, which is a flashy way to do it, and it's probably the way I'd do it, which isn't as good as just taking the bishop. That's good enough. That's just game over. Can't get out the forks. Everything's attacked. There's just nothing for me. So I fell apart real quick, like a patzer should in these situations. So embarrassing, and you know, I'm not happy to show that one, but I have to show it because I'm going to show all 6 games. So that allowed me to go and have a rest, because I'm not being funny, but that was really quick. I was a little bit embarrassed to get up. I was almost going to wait for a while just to let my clock run down, and I just said, just take it. You've lost. You messed it up. You should have played your own game for one, or you should just not just blunder a pawn for absolutely nothing. Well, no reason really. I'm not even sure what went through my head, but you've seen me sack my queen for nothing, so yeah, I'm a patzer. So that's that game done. Any dreams of grandeur destroyed. Still 2 out of 3. Looking forward to my next game. So a little bit of time passes and I get round 4. So I'll load that one for you. Get that game in. So as I say, I've had big rushes of blood. I'm not feeling stable. Let's put it that way. I've had dizzy highs in the morning, and I'm now sitting down as black against another 2200. I didn't play many people below 2200. Let's put it that way. A Russian chap. I can't remember his name exactly. Sorry. And he played d4. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to not play the Dutch. You know, I love the Dutch, even though I go terribly wrong in it most times. I still love it. He's 2200. He's playing an 1800. He's thinking, I'll play a tricky line. And I'm like, well, I out of all the moves, the only one I'm fearing at the moment is because of Simon Williams' destruction of me with e4. Now, h3 is the Korchnoi gambit, and I'm not scared of this one, not even slightly. So I'm actually feeling quite cocky. Considering I just got wiped off the board by an IM. I was just playing absolutely atrocious chess. I'm feeling confident again. I bounced back really fast in this tournament. I don't know why. I just generally had a nice feeling. I don't know if it's because I had enough sleep and that. And I want to mention a quick story on that, because I spoke to someone later on who's a very strong player, and he just doesn't really play anymore. And I say to him, why don't you play? You're always here. And he goes, oh yeah, but I got insomnia, and you know, I don't sleep well, and you know, that's fair enough. I get that, but then just get used to playing tired. I mean, you should test yourself. You know, play at work when there's distractions around. Not while you're supposed to be working, but in your lunch break. You know, play when you're knackered or when you're feeling sick, because when you play a tournament, you can't guarantee you're going to feel good. So you've just got to feel normal playing chess. So if normal's tired, then that's what it is, and you'll get better that way. But anyway, so the game goes on. As I say, I'm not going to go too much into move orders, etc., etc. Just going to play through some moves. You're saying, oh, it's not the Korchnoi gambit yet, but it will be. If you're playing h3, you're definitely going to play g4. It's coming. There it is. No surprise. But you just don't panic. There's no fear. Just don't take that pawn. If you take the pawn, you just get destroyed on h7. So just never take it. The point being, if he takes it, you get to take back your bishop. You've got some good defense around your king. And the G file is less scary than the H file. I don't know why. It just is. And the computer backs me up here. It's 0.5 actually for black here. So he keeps attacking the pawn. He wants me to either push it or take again, just so he's opening up another line. You know, it's all a bit scary. Rook's coming down. Bishop's going to take the knight, and it's game over. But I can just break the pin. Now I'm actually counter-threatening dropping my knight in. That's a really, really solid knight. He'd probably have to take with his knight, and then suddenly he's got no real kingside attack, because these pawns are very slow to attack me. And when it's 2 pawns against 2 pawns, it doesn't matter which one he pushes, here or here. I'll just push the other one, and it just locks up again. So never be too scared of seeing 2 pawns against 2 pawns. You should be happy. So that forces him to take the knight. Of course, the knight's coming in with tempi, but my queen's well placed. I put pressure here. He defends. Again, it's funny because he keeps tempting me to take, and he'll just take with a knight, and then oh yeah, I get a pawn, but then I just get massacred. I would just get killed. So it's definitely a poison pawn. I'm leaving it well alone. I'm going to go on for my own attack. He hasn't castled yet, but then if he does castle, he's in problem. He can't really leave his king in the center because at some point I'll be able to take this, and then maybe I can take that if he can't castle. So he castles. I get on with my attack. Moves his king. I keep attacking. Moves his rook. I pay absolutely no attention. I'm still 0.5 up here, so it just shows you that, you know, people can play little side scary lines, but black, as long as again you don't panic, you're fine. And here I must admit I've gone back to feeding off the confidence for the first 2 games. I'm feeling really cocky, and I play a terrible blunder. And you know, any move but that move, instant loss. And this is the chess pats away. Feel really confident, right up to the point where I don't just blunder, I completely lose in one move. It's not like I lose a pawn, I get to fight on a bit. No. Straight to a loss. 16 move loss. On the back of that, was it 12 moves against the IM? You can imagine my state of mind is not good right now. So I resign. I go off. I buy another coffee with my friend Nick. We have a chat. Not about chess, just about anything else. Oh, in fact, because I lost so quickly, I won a prize. I won this book, and it was either this or a DVD from Simon Williams. But I've already got all his DVDs, which you should all buy. And originally, when I picked this up as one of the choices of prize, I thought it was about pubs, and then I realised it's actually about jail chess. But I've read the beginning of it, and it's actually really, really interesting. So I'm looking forward to reading that later. It's worth £20, so I like to think I won £20 there for losing really badly. So anyway, that was round 4. So I went off, got my coffee, and then just loading in game 5. Bear with. Went over to the ball pairings and found out I got the top seed. So I just got killed by an IM, then beaten up by a 2200 Russian in a position where I was just doing very nicely, and now I get the top seed. He's I think he's 2261. I know I'm being a bit vague on the ratings. You can always check it out. Just go to Chess England and go to the Golden Screen results. I'm not hiding; these results did happen. Because he'd also been having a terrible tournament. There was a couple of there was another IM, David Levy, who didn't have a great tournament either. Actually, he did quite well because he's come back 40 years from chess, so he's just easing himself back in. I mean, one of my club's favourite stories at the moment is that he hasn't beaten any of the mushrooms, and he's played 4 or 5 of us. So his record against us is pretty bad. I think I mentioned before that I drew with him, and I'll keep mentioning it because I drew with him because he's an IM. So anyway, so this is a really strong player. His name's John Merriman. His ECF grade is ridiculous as well as his FIDE, but you can look that up. And funny enough, what happened? We got the same opening as the first game, though he does diverge pretty early. So this is the exact first game, but he takes the knight. In the first game, the knight was dropped back to c6, but he took the knight, which is a good line. But I've had really good results with this one. I beat my first 2000 rated player at the London Chess Classic in this line, so it's a line dear to my heart. Now, rook c8, I originally thought was a really bad move, but it's actually fine. Computer backs it up, says absolutely fine, as long as the follow-up's correct. Now, the reason he's played that is because I really want to play my usual, without thinking, gain tempi on the queen, but in this line he can just block with a bishop, so it's really pointless. So instead I thought, oh, he's 2200. I learned my lesson from that IM where I didn't go for him, and I went for him. I'm attacking the H pawn. Okay, it's not that scary yet, but obviously you've seen this before if you've seen any of my online stuff. I'm going to bring the queen in, I'm going to try and mate him, and he instantly blunders. G6 is not the way to defend this, though. And I don't know what came over me. I had to be very imaginative to punish this. The first couple of moves are really obvious, and then some magic happens. And I know I'm ruining the story a little bit, but oh my god, you'll see. So I'm threatening checkmate. well, not checkmate, but obviously if his king's here and my queen's here, well, I win the bishop for 1, and that's game over. So he has to defend that pawn, which he does. I attack the rook. I take a pawn. So all good. I'm a pawn up. I'm +1 here, and I see the follow up for what his next move is. Obviously, he's going to play bishop g7. Now here I fought for a good 3 or 4 minutes. You know, it's really long. I'm thinking about dropping my queen back to attack the knight, because the bishop's attacking the knight. Never forget this bishop's attacking that knight. Then I was thinking, oh, queen here to defend the pawn at least, because, you know, he's got bishop takes pawn. But if he takes the pawn, then I can just take his knight again. You know, these are the kind of things I'm thinking of where can I put my queen to defend the pawn potentially and keep the threat on the knight. A lot of why I didn't play any of these moves was if I ever play my queen back here, which is probably the most tempting. He's just got knight here. If bishop takes, then he's actually, funny enough, this is the funny thing of chess, how quickly something can turn around. His rook's actually amazing then. You know, you get your bishop to c6 and you play, and I'm in trouble. So I fought for ages and ages and ages and ages, and I'm looking at the checks, where the checks, and I'm saying, all right, okay, so if I move anything else, then obviously bishop takes queen. And then I thought, hang on a minute, okay, bishop takes queen. Knight takes check. Where does the king go? The king can't go here, because if the king goes there, I'll take the bishop with check, and I'll win his queen. So I get my queen back. So I'll actually be winning 2 pieces. I was thinking, oh, how can I make that work? Because obviously, right now, if he takes, I take, he can just go here. And then I'm like, well, I've got nothing after that. Okay, I win a rook, but I've lost a queen. I win a rook and a bishop, but I lose a queen. And a knight, actually, because he can just take the knight back. So I was thinking, all I need is, at some point, if that knight moves, after the check and the king's gone here, which is obviously the best move, I need the knight to move again with check. And then I thought, hang on a minute. Does this work? Does that work? I'm threatening checkmate. Am I just about to mate 2200? Because the reasoning is, if he takes, now check, king over, I could take here check. King has to go back, and I'll take his queen. And then, after he takes back, I'll win a piece. So I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to be at 2200. Heart's pounding again. I know he's having a bad day, and this would make his day even worse. So I was thinking, what move has he got here? The only move I could see that he could stop instant mate is the move he played. I'm thinking, well, the geometry hasn't changed. When I do the knight check from here, I can come here and win the queen. What's the difference? Okay, I don't win a pawn, but, you know, it's good stuff. And also, I considered the best move here, which I didn't play. Damn it. Which is simply rook here. And he just felt for me, I mean, this is just crushing, by the way, guys. I'll leave it with you, but it's +6. And I considered it, but I just couldn't quite follow all the. I felt like he'd just have a move where he could just play his queen somewhere, and it would all be fine. And I'm panicking, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm sacking my queen. Oh my god, oh my god. So here, I really needed to be calmer, and coffee was a bad choice for my drink of the afternoon. Finding bishop g5 great, but I do this often. I don't always follow up correctly. But excuse my voice, I do play a good move here. I sack the queen anyway. Rook takes check, and now I blunder horribly. King moves, and now of course knight check. And I was thinking, yep, knight check. Okay, knight check. Yeah, but hang on a minute. Can I not repeat the position? Can I not take this pawn? Yeah. Then he'll go back. Then I'll do knight check again. Yeah, because this way I'm definitely going to win an in knight check here and win the queen. That way, at least I guarantee a pawn win. Sorry, yeah, a pawn win, and you know, maybe I'm picking up something with cheapos. But being too clever. And how many times has that happened? Bishop g5, great cleverness. This kind of clever, bad clever. Because I'd completely missed, and I'm lucky I'm not just instantly losing. f6, which is so obvious, and I kicked myself. I was like, I'm glad he'd spent a lot of time to this point. I think he only had about 3 minutes left, and I still had about 18. And to be honest, that saved me that he spent so much time. This line is completely forced, so it wasn't exactly something either of us had to think about. But he did a little bit, because he got up to under a minute towards the end of this position. So I have to take check. But unfortunately, of course, his king can just move. I'm not winning the queen back. I am still winning a lot of material. And here, I'm like, well, funny enough, after the queen moves, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. Even rook swinging over is dangerous. And I'm actually thinking I've got so lucky here. I'm probably still winning. And he plays rook c7, offers me a draw. And to be fair, the computer's given it a 0-0-0, and I did accept the draw. But he had 50 seconds left. My plan was pretty straightforward. But this is it. Like I'm still learning on how good is my position really, and that's something I still need to work on. You know, there's stuff like, you know, there may be even some checkmates at some point. Who knows? There's always a threat of if the queen ever moves away from the defense of the bishop, that I can just take here and then take here. You know, there's lots of ideas. But I must say, I was once again influenced by the height of his rating, and when he offered the draw, considering I thought I'd messed up earlier, I took the draw, so it's a little bit cowardice. But you know what it's like. You go, oh, he's only got 50 seconds and he plays perfect chess, and queens are scary. But I think it would have been a hard plan to meet this. Even though it's 0-0-0, I think it's still really tough. Rook here first, obviously, just defend the rooks. Always have a threat here because the knight's pinned. So that one got away, sadly. One brilliant move followed up by the wrong move. I saw rook c1 and just didn't work it out. I just was so happy with myself that I'd found bishop g5. I didn't finish it off. But I got a draw. So a draw against a 22-61. That is now my highest draw. Very happy. Had a great tournament. And 1 game to go. If I win the last game, I might get the grading prize. Because the grading prize was set at under 2,000. And I'm on 2.5 out of 5 here. So 3.5 might be enough. So let me quickly get on to the last game. So I know it's quite a long video. Load. Game 6. Game 6 is really complicated, but I'm just going to whiz through because it was a fun finish to the tournament for me. Not saying whether I won or not, because I have fun when I lose as long as the game's crazy. To a point. Obviously I don't like losing. No one does. Unless you're Maskers. So in this one I was black to finish off, and I actually got an unrated guy. And you'd think, oh good, I've got a nice easy finish. Of course I haven't. He's got 2.5 points in a tough open 2. It was actually his first tournament in forever. He'd done really well. He drew with an IM earlier. So his rating performance, even after losing to me, was 1900, which is, well, better than my rating. So it was definitely someone to be nervous about. And we got another Sicilian and another Nadorf, and he played H3. And I've said this before, there's about 100 ways you can play against the Nadorf. So this is just another one. And it's scary, as you'll see. Just developed, he's attacking with the G-pawn, so it's like an Anand. It went through a bit of a phase of being really popular with Anand and crew. I don't really know a lot about it, other than just watch out. And it gets hairy fast. Now, I was fairly happy with this move, knight c6, just because at some point he is going to play. You have to. Why chuck your G-pawn down if you're not going to play again? And I've given myself a square. Natural move is to play your knight here and in here and then maybe even here. So I was actually quite happy with this one. Castles, rook c8. Some point you obviously go for c2. You may be sacking your rook for the knight if that knight ever moves. Just ideas. Moves his king, and moving that king made me play my next move because he's lined up his king with my rook. So no castling for me. g5 pretty much had to, otherwise I'll take that pawn and I'll just be Bella. Knight moves away as previously planned. f4, really good move because the follow up I didn't see the follow up. And here's the follow-up. And this, at the end of the day, when you played 5 really hard games, it's not something you want to see on the board. I mean, luckily, both me and my opponent are tired. But that is definitely not what you want to see. In my head, I was thinking, oh, if I take, knight takes, oh my gosh, he's attacking the bishop, he's attacking the pawn. Okay, the bishop can drop back, but I'm really passive. There's a rook coming down. If I have a castle, this is the kind of panic you do when you're tired. If I have a castle, he's also got queen takes here, because remember the knight's on f4 now. So you don't want to see g6. But also, my whole thing through the whole day is to try not to panic, and I didn't panic. I just centralise my knight, say, have your pawn back, I don't care. He takes the f-pawn, I take with the knight. The knight's actually quite useful there. Everything's now re-defended. Okay, the knight's coming forward. And now, because we're both tired, I hit him with this. So, it's a pseudo-sacrifice. I mean, he can't really take it. He does take it. He should just move his queen somewhere. I'm not actually feeling that great. I mean, the point was, because I'd taken the pawn back with the knight, there was no square for the bishop. Not a good square. Maybe I could have put the bishop on c4. I don't know. As one of the good news of the knight on c6 is that you actually, for a change, you defend d4, so there's no queens dropping him. But my opponent just didn't see the follow-up. And the follow-up, and I've got to say, from this point, I'd already seen that pawn here was going to win something. And I'll show you what I mean. He takes, check, check. Rook blocks, pawn up. Okay, so here, I'm just better. And it's just how I finish him off. And just watch out for, you know, my king's not completely safe. Knight back, takes, plays a good move, doesn't take the pawn. Really easy attack otherwise. It's not so obvious here. So I bring a piece in. He brings a piece in. Okay, my queen hasn't got a million squares. I find a new square to attack. Swap some material. Saves the pawn. Check. I thought he'd block with a queen. I didn't even see he could take the pawn. This is the type of day I'm thinking, oh, if he ever takes that pawn, it's just game over. And it probably is, but I have to be imaginative how I do this. So, knight check. King away. Okay, he's threatening to take my bishop and then bring his bishop out with check. So he get developed. So I attack with the bishop. I'm also hoping to get a check here, which obviously he can defend against, which he does. Now I'm threatening bishop h2, which he ignores. And he thinks, oh, I have to move my queen. If I move my queen, then of course I've lost a piece, because he'll just do queen takes knight. So I have to force checks now. Check. And I love this. Very rare that you get to castle with an attack. Check. King moves. Vid block with the bishop, which is possibly tempting. I just take the pawn. Game over. Double check. King here. And it's just losing so much material, it's over. Computer says mate in 10. Obviously, I can see that. I can't see that. Anyway, that's the video, because it was pretty long and I don't want to keep going on. Golders Green open. Every single section's really well contested. There was 138 players. There were some nice prizes. You know, you meet so many nice people. I can't recommend it more. I always do. Every single time I talk about Adam's events, I go on about how good they are, because they are. I keep going back because I really enjoy them, win or lose. But thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll speak to you all soon.